Hey, everybody. Happy Monday morning. Welcome back to the Podcast Daily. I'm Bill Landis. That's Berm. We are here for your weekly rewatch, this time of Ohio State versus Youngstown State, a 35-7 win for the Buckeyes. Berm, I got to tell you, after watching the game for the second time on television, I kind of feel okay. I feel better than I felt after watching it sort of live. I know you were there in person. I was watching it on TV initially, so our perspectives are different. How do you feel after watching it for a second time?
From a did you do the things you needed to do perspective, I feel slightly better. But on the same token, my concerns that I have are not necessarily about minutia. It's about bigger picture things that I'm wondering about, like energy and leadership and that sort of stuff. So I don't know that I'm going to see. One of the reasons why I'm glad we do this show is because when we watch the game in person, and you've experienced this doing snap judgments after the game, like you're sort of keyed up on everything that just happened, and it's easy to get caught up in with one thing or two that just drives you crazy. And when we do the rewatch show, I think I'm able to rewatch it from a different perspective, where I have a bourbon and I'm able to sit down and watch it, and I'm able to actually try and put things in perspective. And from the game play perspective, I don't think it was that big of a deal how it looked, because I really do. And maybe this is just, maybe Ryan Day has like hypnotized me in the last 10 days or so, but I really am of the impression that he is coaching this like it's an NFL season, and he does not care about how social media feels about his team. And he's saying, we're going to do the things we need to do. We're going to continue to get better. And he's brought up CJ Stroud in the Oregon game multiple times in the last few weeks. And the more I think about it, I really think he's trying super hard to not put too much on the quarterbacks right now, so that they don't feel this added pressure when everything else is like, let it burn. Like a slow burn is okay, as long as by the time you head into South Bend, you have a quarterback you're confident in, which I think they do at this point. And you have an offense that's expanding. And I think we saw that on Saturday. And I think we'll see a little bit more of it against Western Kentucky. And I think we'll see more of it against Notre Dame.
So we're going to go position by position, kind of like we did last week, and just give our impressions of how each group played. But I want to circle back to something you said there, Berm, because I thought, like, a little flat, like not a ton of juice. You watch other teams around the country, and like some of these teams are really flying around, really hitting hard. And I don't know that I'd say that about Ohio State. Is that some of the stuff that is concerning to you 2 games into this?
100%. That is the concern for me. I just don't see dudes who are like passionate on the field right now. And that is a major concern. It looks like folks are just okay standing around. Now, some of that is because it's natural to maybe not have as much juice when you're playing Indiana or Youngstown State. And it's not an excuse. That is just human nature. It's easier to be up if you're playing Texas and Alabama, right? Like, yep. There's a different energy in the stadium. Like as good as the crowd was yesterday, showing up 103,000, like it's a cool atmosphere, but it's not like it ever got loud in that stadium there. And I think that the players do feed off of the energy of the stadium and vice versa. So like at some point, and this is the point I made on snap judgments, my biggest concern is that you have a team right now where all of the leaders and the best players are also the most introspective, reclusive, quiet guys on the team. And someone, I don't care if it's the quarterback, I don't care if it's the running back, I don't care who it is. Someone needs to step up and be the vocal leader of this team. And I don't know who it is going to be, because if you go position by position and look at who we would consider maybe the best player at each position, that is the guy who's quiet. And that is the guy who is pulled, Travion Henderson, extremely reserved. Marvin Harrison, extremely reserved. Emeka Ibuka is trying to get better at that, extremely reserved. Cade Silver doesn't want to talk to anybody. Donovan Jackson doesn't want to talk to anybody. Like defensive line, JT Tuimoloau is a quiet guy. Linebacker, Tommy Eichenberg does not want to talk to people. Denzel Burke does not want to talk to people. Like, this is a problem. Someone has to step up and fill that void. It took CJ Stroud 2 years to get to that point where he was comfortable being a vocal leader of this team. Someone has to do that. That's my biggest, overarching concern with the team.
Yeah, and I hear that, because I feel like I've seen that too. And I think you're right. I think the caliber of opponent and the locations of these games probably do not help. Like, it's, it was a Big Ten road game to start the year, but Memorial Stadium is not the most raucous environment. It's practically a home game for Ohio State, and this is an FCS opponent. So it is you got to bring your own juice kind of thing. And I don't know that Ohio State necessarily did that in either of these games. It makes me curious for what it's going to look like against Notre Dame, but I'm not going to say at this moment that, like, they're not going to be able to reach that level. I just kind of hope that they do, and I think they need to once that happens.
And I don't want to skip ahead to Notre Dame, because next Saturday, I've joked around about this a little bit over the last few months, but like, Western Kentucky is going to bring a way different type of thing into Ohio Stadium than we've seen in a while. Mm-hmm. It's a 4:00 game. That means the crowd has a chance to get a little bit friendly and lubricated throughout the day, which is good. There's going to need to be some noise in that stadium. That is a team that I've said 80-40 type game, but I'm not joking when I say that I think Western Kentucky is going to score 24, 28, 31 points against Ohio State next week. So the Buckeyes are going to need to bring it.
Yeah. I'm there too with you. I think that Ohio State, if Ohio State wants to win that game comfortably, it's going to have to be well into the 40s. I think we'll see how that goes. Right, we'll have all week to kind of get into that and kind of dissect where we think the defense is. Let's talk some positions based off this Youngstown State game. We'll start with quarterback. How do you feel about that position coming out of rewatching it?
Better, I think. I don't think there's a way not to. Honestly, I asked Kyle McCord. We were up in the team room after the game. He was waiting for Emeka Egbuka to get done at the podium, and Kyle and I were in the corner. And I just said, how different did today feel for you? And him and Devin Brown were sitting there. I was asking both of them, how different does it feel from week 1 to week 2? And Kyle said, night and day, light years difference. Devin Brown, who didn't play much in week 1, didn't really get an opportunity to have that same feeling. So I think the fact that he got a lot of reps on Saturday are good. Hey, I think he learned a lot of things about himself. I think the Ohio State fan base probably learned some things about Devin on Saturday, and maybe got a chance to see why Kyle has been chosen as the go-to guy. The consistency is the obvious reason, and you saw Devin on Saturday have a number of times where he made a really good throw, followed up by a throw. You're like, man, you just can't miss that one. There was a little crossing route to Emeka Egbuka in the second quarter of the game that should have been a touchdown. Just throws it 2 yards behind him. There's a touchdown on the play that preceded the 4th down scramble where he was sacked, where Devin Brown was sacked, and the scramble. He misses Carnell Tate in the corner of the end zone. Like, these are throws you have to make if you're the quarterback at Ohio State. And it's not that Kyle McCord is perfect. He had a couple balls that he'd want back as well. The ball to Julian Fleming on the post, he threw it into double coverage, which is fine, but you got to throw that as far as you can throw it and let your receiver go get it. The ball at the first drive of the third quarter that Kyle McCord threw to Marvin Harrison, it's behind him, but I think Marvin Harrison should have caught it anyway. But that's a play that could have been a touchdown if he throws it, if he waits a half a beat longer and gets it in the right spot. So I thought from a leadership standpoint, Kyle McCord looked way more comfortable. And I think the progress is happening, and that's all you want to see.
Yeah, I think that was probably my biggest takeaway with Kyle, is that it did look like he got better 1 week to the next. Comfortable, confident, I think more in command and in tune with what they were trying to do. Mostly accurate. The 3rd and 4 corner kind of throw to Marvin that he missed, and then that drive ended up being a 3-and-out. That was like the one play, and I think he talked about that throw after the game too. Like, that was the one play where I thought that he misfired quite badly. He should have. I'm trying to remember now. They had that the deep ball to, that was Devin Brown, I think. The deep ball to Marv that was a defensive pass interference that wasn't called. Like,
that was Marv. That was Devin Brown. I have it on my notes. That might have been Devin's best ball. Of the game. And Marv got hauled down to the ground, and then I don't know why that's allowed, but I guess that's the way it works.
Yeah. So I think
first, sorry to cut you off, but on Kyle McCord's second drive of the game, it was a punt. Like, he threw a ball over the middle to Emeka Egbuka on a 3rd and 9 that Emeka Egbuka was mugged and should have been an easy first down on a pass interference. So I think that he just looked better. I think Kyle McCord was taking an extra second to find the right guys. I mean, if you think about the 71-yard touchdown to Marv, like, that's a throw a week ago, and maybe this is because you don't have as much pressure from Youngstown State as you did Indiana, obviously. But it took a second for Marv to break free there and be wide open, and he waited and read it and threw the correct ball. Whereas Devin Brown later in the game had a throw to Marvin Harrison that he forced, where Julian Fleming broke open on the side, which should have been a touchdown. So I think that's the thing that, you go week to week. Kyle McCord got better in the second half against Indiana than he was in the first half. And he was better in the first half against Youngstown State than he was in the second half against Indiana. And that, again, it's a small sample size, but that's what you have to see.
Yeah, and Devin hasn't, I guess, to be fair to him, hasn't had as many opportunities, right? He's starting behind Kyle because he didn't get to throw the ball last week against Indiana. Yeah. So he's kind of playing catch up a little bit. I think if he completes that ball to Marv on the non-pass interference call, people feel a little better.
First drive,
yeah, people feel a little better about Devin, but he was fairly inaccurate. He missed, I think, some pretty easy throws. Another one, like you said, that could have been a touchdown. Whereas I thought Kyle was quite good. So I don't know.
I asked Devin after, I said, grade yourself. And he told me a C. And I said, why?
Yeah, that seems fair.
He said, I just missed throws I can't miss. And it's not just the physical throw that you miss sometimes. It's that 2nd and 25. So Ohio State scores the touchdown and then it gets called back. And you have 2nd and 25. And he forces the throw to Marv on a quick hitch and he throws it 10 feet in the air and Marv can't jump and catch it. But it's not just the fact that you threw it 10 feet in the air and Marv can't get it. It's that Julian Fleming on the other side was completely uncovered.
Right.
And you can, again, that's those little things where more experience, more playing time will give him the confidence to say, okay, I don't need to throw that as soon as my right foot hits on my third step, and it's a work in progress. Now, to his credit, next play, he scrambles out of the pocket, does a nice job, like plotting on the sideline. He gets hit for the late hit, and the Buckeyes end up scoring a touchdown on that drive anyway. So that is what people, I think, are excited about Devin Brown, the opportunity to see him extend plays and do things. But as you and Doug talked about at length on the postgame show, and as Austin and Bobby Carpenter have been saying in the last month and a half, like this idea that Devin Brown is somehow a light years better athlete. Geez, it's really difficult to work my brain sometimes. Light years better athlete than Kyle McCord. It's not going to reflect itself in the structure of an offense. Like if these guys are out there doing a decathlon, maybe Devin Brown wins 8 out of 10 events, but in the structure of an offense, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, that much was apparent, which is why I think we're entering the territory where Ryan Day, I think, is probably going to name Kyle McCord the full-time starter. And it's not that Kyle has blown me away. I think it's good that he showed progress, and it's unfortunate for Devin that he didn't make the most of the little opportunities that he got. But it's time to stop messing around, because I think you need to pick a guy and let him continue to get more comfortable against Western Kentucky before you go to South Bend. So I'm envisioning a scenario where that happens this week. I think I'd be pretty surprised if we don't get a declarative statement this week from Ryan Day.
It seemed to me post-game that he wanted to make that announcement, but just didn't want to do it there. And again, it's not a knock on Devin Brown either. I mean, I think people understand the situation is that he is still a year behind Kyle, and he needs to get those reps. So I think in an ideal world, Ohio State goes out next week and you still see Devin Brown for a quarter and a half if things go the right way. So he's going to continue to get better. And I'm not going to say he can't be the guy, but I think that Kyle McCord has shown what people had said all offseason was Kyle has to lose the job. And he has not done that in the last 2 years.
Yeah. All right. A couple positions I think we can maybe run through a little quicker here. Running back. Small sample size, like everyone had fewer than 10 carries. I thought Trevion Henderson looked explosive, which was nice to see. I guess the one thing that remains concerning for me with the group sort of as a whole is the inability to break tackles and make guys miss. Mayan Williams does not look like himself in that regard. Trevion, for as explosive as he did look, is still, I think, leaving a little something to be desired there. And Chip Trainum, after doing a really good job with that against Indiana, was a little less effective against Youngstown State. Yeah. But I thought it was fine. Like in a game where they didn't run the ball a ton, I thought the running backs were okay.
I am on the group. I guess I would say I'm flat. I don't think anything's changed. And I listened to you the other day, and you mentioned how when Trevion has played non-Power 5 opponents, he averaged over 10 yards a carry. And I'm going to try not to let that knowledge and understanding cloud what I'm about to say. Watching Trevion Henderson on Saturday is what Trevion Henderson should be. And I listened to you and Doug afterwards, and I know Doug was still pretty critical of him. And I don't know what else you want to see out of the guy. He had 9 yards on his first carry, 8 yards on his second carry, get called back for a hold, screen pass for 5 yards where he, maybe could have sidewinded himself and made it a bigger play, but I don't think so. Then you run the stupid short side toss stretch to the boundary play that loses 2 yards, but there's holding on that play, so it gets eradicated. The next carry he gets, he sees his defender and hurdles him, and it's only a 3-yard play, but I think like Travion, I think was getting juiced up on that because I really believe in a lot of kids' minds, especially kids like him. It's not necessarily about like, hey, did I bust that for 20 yards? It's, am I feeling like myself? And I think that the reaction from Travion after that hurdle was like, okay, I am back. And I think that goes a long way towards the rest of the season. It is I saw the guy, the explosion was there. I out-athleted him. It just happened to be, again, on the short side, right into the sideline. If there's no sideline there, it's a huge play. Then he has the 16-yard just shot up the middle and that gets called back after a touchdown. Then he scores the touchdown on the 12-yard just burst up the middle. Then the screen pass for 13 yards where he again shows the versatility. And then his next and final carry is a 30-yard just absolute shot out of a cannon for a touch. I don't know what else you could ask for on that day from him. Now, I do understand, and it seems weird to me that these running backs are running to contact. And I don't to me, the idea of being a running back is that you try to avoid getting tackled. So it seems to me these guys are like trying to prove something, whether it's to themselves or the coaching staff, like I'm a tough SOB and I'm going to run into these dudes. And I don't know why. Chip Trayanum did the same thing in this game. Like I just don't see, I'm not sure I understand it. They're like seeking out contact. And I'm not, I get it. Maybe if you're trying to prepare mentally for Penn State or Michigan, Wisconsin, etc., but you're playing Youngstown State and you should be able to just run right by these guys.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add to that I like reflecting a little bit on the conversation that Doug and I had about Travion on the post game show live. I do think probably we ended up being hypercritical of him. It was a pretty good game. I think that we saw a glimpse of, I guess, how I would prefer to see him use, which is like get him in space a little more and don't run him into the short side of the field as much, and don't ask him to make some of those cuts on like the wide zone plays that I just don't think necessarily suit his skill set. But on some of these inside runs and then the sweep that he scored a touchdown on, he looked more decisive. So if that's going to be the case, then I agree with you. It was not a bad game for Travion by any stretch.
My hope is that he just takes that and grows with it, because it is going to get harder, and he's a kid that I think it really is about confidence with him, and that's why that hurdle play, I specifically wanted to circle that one, because I didn't see it when it happened on the field because I was on the other side. I didn't even know that he hurdled someone on that play, and then watching it on TV, like he was pumped up about it, but it didn't seem to me like he was like, hell yeah, look how good I am. It was okay, I am feeling this and I am in this game, and so that's why I wanted to bring that spot up. Not that I need to argue with Doug across shows, but that's how I felt about that one.
No, I think that's good. I think it's, we should not always agree on everything, so I think it's good. I have no major notes on wide receiver other that they're very good and look very good. And it was weird to see Marv drop one pass.
Here's the thing, Bill. Let me ask you this question. And I'm going to couch this in a way that I hope people don't assume I'm being like unnecessarily alarmist and or critical. I would consider that there were 4 balls in this game that Marvin Harrison catches a year ago he didn't catch on Saturday. Now, you couple that with the fact that he had the play last weekend where he goes out of bounds, where maybe he's pushed out of bounds, whatever, probably shouldn't have gone out of bounds on that play. There is the sideline throw that Kyle McCord makes where he doesn't drag his feet, and the play right before the clear cut drop. So that's one I think he would have caught a year ago. The clear cut drop on the next play on the 3rd and 9, or the 2nd and 9, and the Kyle McCord scrambles on the next play when he doesn't need to. That's another conversation. The ball that Devin Brown threw in that's too high that Marvin got both hands on and gets knocked out of his hands. And then the third quarter pass to Marv from Kyle that was a step behind him. I think there's 4 balls in this game that Marvin Harrison catches 9 times out of 10, and yet all of them get dropped in the same game. Is that weird? Or am I just making something out of nothing?
I think I might say that you're making something out of nothing. I thought the sideline one was late. The drop right after that was a pretty clear drop. And I don't know that I thought he should have caught the other 2. So, I mean, he's a freak. He's capable.
Should have. I'm saying that a lot of times he will. And so to have it all in one, like he had a great game, obviously 7 catches, 160 yards, 2 scores, longest touchdown of his career. But I think, and you mentioned it on the post game, like there's a lot left on that bone there. Some of them were because the throws weren't perfect, but what, ball placement specialist CJ Stroud was known for was putting it in a spot where only Marvin's going to catch it. And I think 75% of the time, if you run those plays on a simulation, he catches it. He catches all of them 75% of the time.
Yeah, he might. I also wonder, like, I don't know. It did feel like to me, like some of the ways he was moving, like he was still maybe feeling the after effects of that. What I'm assuming was a stinger against Indiana when he
got popped early in the game too.
Yeah,
shoulder. So
I don't know. Part of me was like expecting him not to play in this game, and then he played and had a monster game. So good for him. I'm not. Yeah, I have no concerns with Marv. I see what you're saying, but
it's not a concern. It's just weird to me because if you combine that with the lacking attention to detail a week ago, that you're like, interesting. So maybe it's just getting into the flow. Maybe it's hard to get into the rhythm when you got multiple quarterbacks and the ball comes off their hands differently. And there's all these. I'm just, the Monarch throws it the same way every time.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's maybe like something in Marv that's like, hey, I need to have consistency at my quarterback, but who knows? Again, it's not like he had a bad game. I'm not trying to say he's, struggling. It's just, it was a weird, I think that there were 4 balls that he normally would have caught. That's all. But otherwise wide receivers good. Plus
tight end, I thought was okay. Some issues in blocking in space again with Cade Stover that I didn't love to see. I thought G. Scott Jr. had a pretty good game, actually.
Yeah. My hot take is that G. Scott is the best tight end on the team right now.
Oh, I don't know if I disagree with that. It was not a game where they got targeted a whole lot. It was much more about their blocking. And yeah, I think I might agree that G blocked it a little better than Cade did in this game.
I'm not sure where this inconsistent physical approach from Cade is coming from, but it just seems like there's some sort of communication issue not happening, and to not get targeted, maybe that does put you probably in a different mind space where you're not like as into the game as maybe you were a week ago, but you're the captain and you need to be better.
For anyone who cares about these things, Pro Football Focus had G. Scott slightly better than Cade Stover as a run blocker. And I guess G was not asked to pass block. Cade was, and he did okay. Offensive line.
Pass blocking. Bill, I'm just cutting you off because are you as surprised as I am that this group seems to be better at pass blocking than run blocking? Because I would not have bet that 100 times over 2 weeks ago.
No, neither would I. It was part of the reason why I said and then called myself out for it on the postgame show that I thought they were going to be a pretty good rushing team early on the season, just because in theory that's easier to kind of get nailed down as you're working through some new pieces on the offensive line. And I actually thought their run blocking was a little better in this game, but they are definitely a better pass blocking unit than a run blocking unit right now, which I would not have guessed.
Yeah, I mean, some of the run blocking stuff, it wasn't poor on Saturday. Buckeyes again Devin Brown had the most carries on the team along with Mayan Williams and Chip Trainum. I mean, so they were splitting things up. The penalties have just got to stop. I mean, you can't have that. And it is a weird. Spencer Holbert from Letterman Road brought it up in the postgame with Ryan Day. Like a week ago, you have communication issues, you have some execution issues where you are maybe not getting as clean a game as you want against Indiana. This week, the communication issues seem to be fixed, but then you have these strange penalties. You got to hold on Hinsman, you got to hold on Josh Simmons, and you got a hands to the face by Simmons. And the Buckeyes did have a rushing touchdown called back on the Mayan Williams touchdown on a absolutely ridiculous holding call on Chip Trainum. That's not. I mean, we're not here to talk about officiating, I guess, but that's not holding. Period. I don't think Josh Fryer played as well as he did against Indiana, but upon rewatch, I don't think it was as bad as it felt on Saturday.
Yep.
Donovan Jackson certainly took a step up from a week ago, I think. And I like what Carson Hinsman's doing at center. Matthew Jones has been fine. Josh Simmons, that is the question mark heading into the season, and that is the question mark on the offense to me now.
Yeah, I thought it was a step in the right direction, I think, which it should be when you're playing an FCS team. Kyle McCord was only pressured once. They had 2 negative runs. I thought they were identifying things and a little better targeted in the run game. They kind of got away a little bit from running stretch so much, which was nice to see. I don't know what that means because there were games last year where that happened and only for it to come right back the next week and then to run it a lot. So I'm not saying that they're totally adjusting their run game here, but I thought it was better. I guess it's frustrating that some things that were issues a week before get fixed and then new issues creep up. But in my mind, like penalties are a thing that are relatively easy to fix. If you're getting better with communication and identifying things, I think that is much more noteworthy than a couple random penalties creeping up. So that was the group that I think I felt the most different about on a rewatch. Was like, this was not a terrible game for the offensive line. And watching, I was like, this feels kind of weird. But the second time I was like, it was fine.
Yeah, and like the wide receivers, I think that there is a noticeable shift in what an offensive lineman feels when you have a new quarterback in the game, because the offense seems to be being called significantly different when Devin Brown's in the game, and you're getting more of the QB runs and that sort. I mean, the touchdown, the 30-yard touchdown on Travion Henderson's run was a read option where Devin Brown made the right call and made the right read, and I mean, it's just like a sweep, but it's like a read option sweep almost, and you had a lot of people follow Devin because the defense has been expecting him to run the ball. So that is what you get with that. But it's not like there's a big enough difference. It's not Kenny Guyton versus Braxton Miller, where all of a sudden the offensive line's like, oh, this guy's going to scramble around all the time. But I do think that the way that the guys communicate, their cadences, the way that they speak, like it might be something different, because Devin Brown sacked multiple times in this game and Kyle McCord only had 1 pressure on him. So I don't know exactly if it's like, hey, this guy's running around, you got to hold that block a little bit longer. I'm not sure, but I'm not an offensive line guy.
Let's flip the other side of the ball. Defensive line. I thought against the run they were okay. You would have liked to see them make more plays in the backfield. The thing that I maybe come away from this game most alarmed by is just like the lack of get off on like in pass rush situations. We were talking on Slack on Sunday before we started recording this about like different guys, different plays. You can like stop the play and like 3 guys are moving and 1 guy's still in a stance. And it wasn't like a couple guys got caught doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if I can't imagine it's telling them to like not play aggressively against the pass. It's just not there. And I know people were concerned with the lack of pass rush generated. They did get through for some sacks late in that game, but they blitzed a lot in this game, and the blitzing and whatever kind of rushing they were doing did not generate a whole lot of pressure, which I think is concerning.
Yeah, the blitzing from when they just blitzed Tommy Eichenberg, it was fine. When they're blitzing anybody else, it seemed like it wasn't. I don't understand. Like JT Tuimoloau to me, and again, for those who are out there much more into schematics of football than I am, like it seems like he's lined up with like this wide 9 technique all the time, and I don't know why they're doing that. It was because he's not getting to the quarterback as it is, and having all this extra room to get there is not helping. I want to see everyone on the defensive line play with the intensity of Caden Curry and Michael Hall. And if they don't, I don't want them playing. That's the way I feel about it. Now, I am not the coach. I don't get to make these decisions, but it seems like there is just a lack of passion in that group. And that is the biggest, those guys completely impact the game. That those guys change the way a game goes. And Ohio State can't give up 7 of 15 third downs to Youngstown State. You just can't do it. You can't do that. You're giving up almost 50% to Youngstown State after, and that team was not doing anything. There was no razzle dazzle. There was no weirdness about what they were doing. Youngstown State was dropping back and passing the ball. They didn't do a triple option. They weren't running quick, 1, 2, 3 fires. They weren't doing that sort of stuff. Like, this is an offensive line that physically just handled Ohio State's front 4. And I cannot, the run game, they weren't bad, but their job may not be to pass rush. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, am I misreading it? That their job is to stand up and let the linebackers and the safeties clean things up. And if that's the case, that's fine. But when Youngstown State is dropping back 26 times to pass, and no one's getting close to the quarterback, that is a major concern. Like that is this was not a quick passing game. This was, I'm going to step back and wait for guys to come open. Like it was, that is the biggest. I just don't get it. I'm not sure what is going on, but no pressure from that front four at all in it. I've said it over and over. If Jack Sawyer can't get to the quarterback from the edge, you either move him inside or you put Kenyatta Jackson out there. Someone else has to be out there, because you keep saying, and I think you're absolutely right, to expect JT Tuimoloau to be a Chase Young style pass rusher is not right. That's not who he is. That's not what he's going to do. He is a strong side defensive end who is going to be your guy to set the edge and keep things clean for linebackers. Someone has to get to quarterback. I don't care who it is, but Jack Sawyer is not doing it. And so you either move him or you put someone else out there that can complement what JT does.
Yeah, it makes me want to see like what Mitchell Melton can do, or perhaps what CJ Hicks can do in this, theoretical jack package that we've not seen a whole lot of just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mitchell Melton didn't get into the game until the very end against Youngstown State. But he's a defensive end and a guy that can play the jack, right? You can just put him on the end, stand him up, let him rush the passer. They haven't really done that. I wouldn't mind seeing CJ Hicks do it. They got to get somebody who can do it off the edge, because Mike Hall can do it from the interior. We know that. And he's looked pretty good, I think, these first 2 weeks doing so, but they need more.
The only time there's energy from that defensive line is when Michael Hall or Caden Curry are out there. That's it.
Yep. 5 pressures of Youngstown State's quarterback on 23 dropbacks, according to Pro Football Focus. 5 of the 7 conversions came via the pass. 4 of those were like kind of a direct result of Jim Knowles throwing a pressure at Youngstown State that didn't get home, and then sort of leaving the secondary like kind of hung out to dry a little bit, and they converted. So no like explosive plays to really speak of, no backbreakers, but when Ryan Day complains about Ohio State not having enough plays, part of the issue is the defense's inability to stop Youngstown State from getting first downs.
Ryan Day has a way of saying things without saying things, and he said it a couple times on Saturday after the game, which is, we have to get off the field on third down. We have to get off the field on third down. And that is something is not right on defense.
I will add to that. Like, I think this is a tangent. Like, I think the sheer number of play stuff that he's harping on at the moment, I think is overblown to an extent. And I think a few things. One, I think Ohio State can play faster on offense. They run a play like every 26 seconds, which is about what they've been. And last year they were toward the bottom end of the country in pace of play. They had a 13-play drive. They had 11-play drive, and they had another 13-play drive where they didn't score a touchdown. Yeah. So
here's what I'm holding. If Buckeyes know lesser opponents are going to play slow, Ohio State needs to play much faster, which they should anyway, because it's clearly when their quarterbacks are the best.
Mm-hmm. So I don't dismiss it entirely. It's more about possessions for me than it is plays, and they were more drive efficient in this game than they were against Indiana. But I would also say that when you're playing an FCS team like Youngstown State, I don't think it is unquestioned or out of the question that Ohio State scores every time it has the ball, and it didn't do that. Linebacker, good game.
Same. I mean, there's nothing. You know what you're getting. And I would have one note, which is Cody Simon needs to play more, and I love the way Cody Simon plays. The guy understands football, and every time he's on the field, he's making tackles.
Yeah, I would have liked to see CJ Hicks get into the game earlier. He did play
third quarter.
In the third quarter, he tallied 16 snaps. Tommy Eichenberg played 43. Steele Chambers played 43. The game was closer than anybody wanted it to be. It wasn't hand the entire time. I think CJ could have played more if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think the Ohio State staff needs to get better at understanding that close in score doesn't mean close in competition.
Yep. Last thing, secondary. I guess I'll lump the whole group together. I'll start with the corners. Like, I thought they were good. Like, I thought Denzel Burke was great. He's had a really strong start to the season, which I find to be very encouraging. His interception was a great play. The run stop he made earlier on that drive was a good play. I don't really have anything to say with Denzel Burke and Davis Igbinosun other than I thought they were mostly okay when challenged. Maybe Davis Igbinosun was a little soft in coverage sometimes. The safeties.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I'm curious about Davis Igbinosun's playing so far off, because it seems pretty clear, at least in the first 2 weeks, that because he's playing the field side, like teams are going at him, it's a much easier throw than the boundary. And Denzel Burke has been really good. I wrote in my notes that he's reminding me a little bit of the way Bradley Roby played throughout 2013 before he decided to quit. And that I love Jordan Hancock in the slot. Reminds me of Sean Wade in 2019. I think those guys have to be on the field. If Igbinosun's going to be that other guy, then he needs to be playing a little more aggressive, which is maybe not ideal, since when he does get aggressive, he's extremely grabby. But like, I think I'd rather deal with that. If you're going to give up the yards anyway, then at least I'd rather you give them up by playing harder and not softer.
Yeah, I think the position group has been good. Not challenged a whole lot. They'll get challenged this week against Western Kentucky, so we'll see. Safeties had some trouble getting lined up, which was not great to see. I think part of that is kind of the rotation of players at the adjuster position, with Josh Proctor being out and Malik Hartford not playing a whole lot after starting, and Jahad Carter playing a lot after not playing last week. So other than that, I thought the safeties were fine. They were not good on the first drive of the game, and I think we're like responsible for the conversions and the touchdown on that drive. But otherwise, I thought they were fine.
Yeah, I mean, I know folks like to lament Cam Martinez. I rewatched that play obviously a couple times because Cam's my guy, and I'm not gonna deny that. I don't think that was bad coverage on that play. He just was a good throw and a good catch. And I mean, now you'd like to see it not happen, but at the same time, I don't think it wasn't where he just got like lost in coverage. The guy just beat him. Sometimes that's going to happen. If you don't get reps, you have to get reps to get better. And I don't think that play was that bad. Now, what led after that? Lathan Ransom, Buckeyes had a 2nd and 8 for Youngstown State, and Lathan Ransom flies down into the hole. Should have a guy for a 2-yard loss, ends up giving up 2 yards on the play. Next play, Ohio State sends the house. Lathan Ransom's not covering his guy anywhere near close enough, and ends up being a first down play. And then the following play, and this was an entire defensive issue, the touchdown play for Youngstown State. Like, to watch the entire defensive line and linebackers just get eaten up by Youngstown State on one play was just shocking to me. Like,
if you watch that play too, like as it's about the ball's about to be snapped, like Lathan Ransom and Sonny Styles run to the other side of formation, like Malik Hartford's sort of like, where am I supposed to go? And Sonny Styles is like pointing him toward the gap, like, go here. And then they all just sort of run into the middle of the line, and the quarterback just walks into the end zone with nobody there. So I don't know whose responsibility that is. My thought watching it was that it was probably one of the safeties, but there was nobody there. So
yeah, if I can backslide, like, that play reminds me of, it just brought up something else I saw over and over in this game. It was that it seemed to me the Ohio State defensive ends were not reading the quarterback, the mesh point. They were just guessing and get it wrong every time. Like, there was, I think, 3 or 4 examples in this game of JT Tuimoloau, for example, just crashing on the quarterback for no reason, and then the ball going the other way. And I didn't understand it. So you'd have to, I mean, you'll see it on tape if you just watch JT multiple times. He just chased the quarterback for no reason, and the ball wasn't there. And that's not like that guy was being, Houdini or something with football. So
yeah, they did not play the zone read with great discipline. I don't know if that's because they weren't expecting it, or they figured they could just be hyper aggressive and it wouldn't matter. So again, like the quarterback they're playing this week, Austin Reed, is pretty athletic and can move around a little bit. So and he can throw it. So there are things lingering with the defense, which has played, by most accounts, pretty well.
Yeah, it's hard to lament it because they've given up 5 points a game, and that's the same number Michigan's almighty defense has given up in their first 2 games. And that's Michigan's best defensive start to a season since like 2001. So like, it's Ohio State is on the same exact track. Now that's going to change this week for Ohio State. So they have to tighten some things up. And to me, that all starts with pass rush. And I am flabbergasted. I asked one of the Ohio State staff members on Saturday after the game, like, you are clearly not trying to do much as far as being exotic with pass blitzes, with pass rush stuff when we're front four. Like, is that scheme? You're just saying, hey, we can beat these guys. And they said yes. And then we're not beating these guys, and we should not have a problem beating Youngstown State. And they did. And that's a concern.
Yeah, they're number 2 in scoring and number 4 in yards per play allowed through the first 2 weeks of the season. But now they will play an actual offense this week when Western Kentucky comes to Ohio Stadium for a Saturday afternoon game. Obviously, a lot of coverage coming on that game, previewing that game throughout the week here on the podcast, starting with Roosters later today, right, Bro?
Roosters will be there at noon on Monday. If anyone's in the neighborhood of Roosters on Olentangy, if you're in the mood for some wings or whatever else you feel like eating at Roosters, we'll be there at noon. And then what do we got? We got Tuesday Ryan Day press conference. We got snap judgments. We've got Kings of the North coming with you and Doug with the breaking down the whole northern. I'm interested in your top 13 or whatever because the Wisconsin game seemed to have shaken some things up. Doug got extremely I'm sure pissed off that he had circled that Texas Tech and Oregon game, and then Texas Tech finds a way to choke that one away. So should be an interesting week because it seems to me there are a few teams that are rising, and all of the Washington love you guys have been giving is seeming appropriate.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Kings of the North later on Monday afternoon, Roosters Monday afternoon, and all the coverage you come to expect here on the podcast throughout the week. But that'll do it for today's daily. For Berm, I am Bill. We'll talk to you later.